if you're someone who loves to get the most out of life, but for some reason you just feel like you've lost your edge, today's episode of the Limitless Nation podcast is going to be something that will flip that and get back that edge for you. So, Jess, I know we wanted to have this discussion because we talk to a lot of people and, they love to grind. They're goal driven. They are the sort of people that aren't afraid of hard work, but sometimes they just don't feel as sharp as they possibly could be. They sort of lose that edge that has helped get them to a high level, and they want to get it back.
I feel like a lot of the people that we work with are your type A's, your high personality people, but as soon as they don't feel like they're at that top level, it's I guess it's more of a steeper drop than someone who wasn't at that level. I feel like they go from this really high to this really low. They find it hard to once again find that edge back once they've sort of hit that level.
Yeah, 100%. And so today we're going to go into a framework that we've come up with, which is the Performance Edge Pyramid. And we're going to unpack that because we found it something that has been useful personally for ourselves to identify where we've lost our edge, but then also rebuild it. And then we're going to go into how you can diagnose exactly where you're missing right now and then give you a few little takeaways. So let's get it. So our framework for the Performance Edge Pyramid has 3 pillars. Number 1 is the physical base, so having complete energy and health. And so, all of our high performers, they can grind it out, they can work hard, but, one of the biggest things is that if you're pushing things really, really hard, and you find that you're just not getting the same results that you used to because 1, you're not sleeping, 2, you're not hydrated, 3, your nutrition and training is just not where it needs to be. You might find that even though you're putting in the work, you may not be getting the same levels of productivity or outputs from those inputs. And so there are 3 areas that you really need to work on to prioritize the physical base of this is number 1, sleep, hydration, and consistent energy rhythms. And I know, Jess, you've been looking at a lot of the stats around sleep, and it's quite scary how much that actually impacts you.
100%. And all of our clients in, say, all of our checkpoints or weekly check-ins, our main question is around these stats because of the stats around sleep and hydration. Because we're working with people that need to be performing not just necessarily on the field, but in the boardroom, even at home. So even if they honestly, their sleep's generally pretty good, and if they have one to 2 nights sleep, they can have a vigilance decrease of attentiveness and vigilance of around 10 to 15% for that day.
And that was how many hours sleep?
That's just, if you're, say, going from 8 hours to 6 hours. So
less than 6 hours?
Yeah, it's about a decrease in 2 hours, so 6 hours on average. And if you're averaging around 5 to 6 over a 5 to 7 day period, that's generally around 20 to 25% decrease in vigilance, which means you're not as sharp, you're missing things.
25 to 50%.
Yeah. Sorry, 20 to 25%.
Okay.
And then with memory, similar results. So a reduction in under 6 hours sleep, you're going to reduce your memory capacities and capabilities and also retention by around 10 to 20%. And that increases obviously over the week as you cascade this crappy sleep pattern. And then when it comes to your hydration status, most of the body is made up of water. So if you're not hydrating properly, it's affecting every single part of your body. So not just your brain, but also your speed, your reaction speeds, your mental performance.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of stats, with just a 2% body weight loss from dehydration, it can reduce your aerobic performance by up to 5 to 10%. If we're working with athletes, that's a huge number, particularly even our sheep shearers. And then from a mental performance perspective, so cognitive studies says that even losing 1% of your body fluid can impair concentration and short-term memory loss by up to sort of 10 to 30%, depending on how long that's been going for. And I guess how dehydrated are you? So These are really important stats. They're not just general questions we ask because, you meant to drink water. It's because these are vital things to outline why performance is struggling.
It's literally, you look at that, like a 20 to 25% decrease in performance in terms of cognitive function, a 10% decrease in memory, and then like even just from literally 2% decrease in hydration, your reaction time, your ability to think and memory is just like through the floor. And it's something simple. It's just like literally drink more water, sleep more, and you can get anywhere between a 5 and 25% increase in performance. And the crazy thing is, like, people we work with, they're generally very good at what they do, but just understanding that from a pure performance perspective, like how much are you leaving on the table? Just in terms of getting a better night's sleep and also just drinking water. It's very, very simple. One of the key things to just think with that is if you keep your body sharp, your mind is going to follow. Okay. And the good thing about training, nutrition, it does keep you disciplined, and that will start to represent itself in other areas as well. But let's go on to pillar number 2, which is our fire. So once we have a good physical base, we want to power up our pyramid, and we need fire to make sure that our pyramid is an energy station. Okay. And so reason why we've used the pyramid, ancient days, whether you believe it or not, they sort of thought like the pyramid may be potentially, an ancient energy station. And so the fire inside of that is something that we need to keep burning, because if you have physical energy, but you've lost the other side of it, which is your passion and your purpose or your fire, you just don't want to get out of bed. You've just lost that edge to get after it. You've lost that reason why, and you just don't feel like you need to get after it as much.
I guess when it comes to this part of the pyramid, I know recently, not so much this week, but definitely in the past couple of months, the purpose for me has sort of been a bit up in the air, hormonally as well. Not much sleep, parenthood, seem to have lacked that sense of purpose, and as a result, I've been going to pleasure things, so scrolling more, doing things that aren't, I guess, fueling that fire and fueling that passion. And I find that I'm most successful when I have a very clear purpose, and then from that passion comes. Because clarity is one of the biggest things, but then obviously making sure that clarity comes with execution.
And I see you personally just light up, when you've got something like, recently you've been diving into the blood work just even deeper, finding out different things, going back to reconnecting about the strength and conditioning stuff, and then also unpacking again, what you learned with your psychology, and you're like fired up to get after it. And it's something we see as like, with people, sometimes, they might be the best in their field, say some of our athletes, and they're just like, I'm just not as fired up as I used to be. And it's like, in a way, they have to raise that purpose, or they have to reconnect with their why and the original reason they started. And they just haven't sold themselves on the dream recently. And I know for you, like selling yourself on that dream daily has been something that's helped a lot.
No, 100% has. And I guess circling back to what you've just said there, I think particularly with athletes when they go into an off season as well, or they've had a not so good game, or they've had negative feedback from either their fans, their club, their coaches, that starts to drill at that purpose and that passion, because they start second guessing themselves. And I find for a lot of athletes that's a big thing. I might not know that those little comments might actually be affecting the level of purpose, because I don't feel like they're living to that purpose that they've set out to. And I guess in terms of what you've just mentioned there, in terms of like for myself, I'm my best self when I'm learning something new, and then every single day writing down the purpose of whatever it is that I'm currently working on at the moment. I find that visualization, that let's call it meditative practice or manifestation practice, is because it's front of mind, front of thought. And if you don't have these things, you're not looking at them daily, they aren't going to be front of mind. You are going to lose that passion and that purpose.
And so to get your edge by refueling that purpose is number one, reconnect with your why and sell yourself on that dream daily. Do this by visualizing and creating emotional anchors to your goals. Create vision boards, set yourself little targets if you're driven by like goals or consequences. And then the final part is align your daily habits with a mission that excites you. Use your 5 daily non-negotiables. Create a set of daily habits that make sure it's all aligned with you moving towards that purpose, and you'll find that that fire just grows and grows and grows.
And what I've found with some other people as well is having totems, so physical things that they either see or touch each day that shifts either their mentality or their mood to reignite whatever it is that they need. So for some, I know for some athletes, it's like a pair of socks, as an example. Like that creates their vision and their mission and their purpose. I know for a guy who did a lot of study around it, and his name has left me, but he has a wristband that he puts on as soon as he gets home, because that's him now putting on the dad hat, and he's taken off his work hat or his coach's hat because he was a coach for a NFL team. And so having, I guess, those things can also then shift purpose and the passion for different areas of your life too. So I thought a totem was actually a really good example to, I guess, a beginning step of being like, as soon as you see or put that on, you have now turned on that thing.
All right, so pillar number 3 is the structure. And when we look at the pyramid, we have the base. If you don't have solid foundations, you're never going to build a big pyramid. But if you don't have the fuel, the fire, the energy to make this pyramid actually useful, then you're not going to get anywhere. But what holds it all together and actually builds and takes shape of the pyramid is your self-trust and identity. And this becomes the structure of everything. Jess, I know you've worked a lot on, especially like through your psychology degree, in regards to self-trust and identity. Where does this sort of line up for you?
And I guess both of those are two different things. So self-trust and identity to me are generally separate things, so interconnected. But in terms of identity, I feel that can change throughout someone's life more than anything. And I guess sometimes people go through transition and they may have actually, like, their identity shifts. Yep. Like mothers turning into a mother. Yep. Big identity shift there. And I find, particularly when it comes to big life changes like that, because you have lost a version of your identity, a lot of this really becomes extremely important, because you need to reclassify your identity. Your values and your beliefs are generally going to be the same, but you are now changed. And I think in terms of identity, it is one of the pillar things that makes you who you are, and then progresses you into the purpose and the passion, and then everything else on top of that or below that. So if you don't know who you are in terms of the nooks and crannies of your beliefs and values, then you're going to find it hard to really stabilize that pyramid, or at least create and finish the pyramid. And it does take a bit of work, and I find people don't want to do that work because sometimes it becomes overwhelming. In terms of psychology, it's one of the biggest reasons people go to see psychologists, because they don't know who they are. They need help understanding who they are, why they do things, what has caused them to do things. So I think identity is one of the biggest drivers of people being successful. And people just might identify as someone that just goes and gets stuff done. And then in terms of self-trust, that interplays with identity. So if you're a person that doesn't put reps on the board on you validating to yourself that you can do something because you said you're going to do something, that's going to affect your identity in terms of you identify yourself as someone that can't do something, and then you self-sabotage, or you've given yourself validity that you are not good at something because you've consistently not done the actions required or gone against the actions necessary to create that identity, or at least instill that identity. So in terms of self-trust, it comes down to those small daily actions of you doing the things that you say that you're going to do. And for me, as soon as I break trust with myself, I do as much as I can possible to not break that trust with myself. I am consistently getting up at 4 a.m. because I know that if I don't, to me, that level of integrity starts to diminish. And integrity is one of my highest values, which is part of my identity. So self-trust is so necessary from a confidence perspective, but also from a success perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't trust yourself, no one else is going to.
Yeah, 100%. And like the three key action steps for this, like taking from what Jess has said, is you've got to set your daily non negotiables. And these are essentially a set of anywhere between one to as big as you want, but generally one, three, or five daily small promises that you're going to keep to yourself. And daily non negotiables can be flexible. What I mean by that is you need to set clear standards of what achieving these daily non negotiables are. So, say for example, one of my daily non negotiables is I need to train and move my body in some way or nourish my body in some way that improves my ability to perform at my highest standard by keeping my physiology fucking pumping. And so some days that might just look like making sure I stick to my nutrition plan. Other days that might look like training. Other days that might look like going to my jiu-jitsu classes. So the standard of it is to achieve pushing my body, nourishing my body, and do something that essentially allows me to live a longer, healthier, higher quality of life. But the way that that looks can be different as long as I'm achieving the standard of what that looks like. So, making sure you have clear standards for each of these. And one of the biggest things with this is like if you're going to set an identity of a high performer, yet, your standard is like, fuck, I'm going to go and eat McDonald's. I'm going to put shit food in my body. And this is something I've had to work on myself a lot is like, how can I actually create the identity and what are the standards that align with that? If I want to be a world champion in jiu-jitsu, I have to start acting and identifying like someone who is a high performance athlete. So that means finding high nutritious foods, finding the training systems, finding the mentors. And once I have those clear standards of the identity that I want, I can set my daily non negotiables around that. And when you keep those small promises to yourself, you're making little votes for the person you say you want to be. And the final key part to that is surrounding yourself with people who hold those standards or are above you in terms of those standards so that you can hold yourself to a higher level. Because if you surround yourself with people who you're above all the time, they're going to pull you down. And it's like they may be friends, they may be family members, they may be your current gym environment, your current people you surround yourself with. But if you go and put yourself in a situation where you are the small the smallest fish in a big pond, or the person who is like, shit, I need to level myself up to keep up with these people, you'll find that your standards, your commitment to yourself either raises or you freak out and you run away from that situation.
I think another realistic, like real life goal, I think, to break that down even further is like either drinking or eating. If you go out with people who say, hey, just have one drink, and you're really trying to, abstain from alcohol or at least not drink so much, and you go with people and they sort of not necessarily force you but encourage you to go against your goals. And then you go into an environment where a lot of people don't drink, and then you are more likely going to stick to things because you're now in an environment that supports, that supports your identity, I guess supports the identity that you're trying to create. And it's not, I think a lot of people say it's always the five, your environment is the five people around you. And I think it's the five people that you want to allow you to inspire you, not just surround yourself with, but inspire you, and then you go out and then create, I guess, from that, those personal traits around the people. Because you can be different, but I still enjoy hanging out with you. Like you eat differently to myself, but your actions don't affect me.
100%.
But then I go and surround myself with people who have a higher standard in certain things to improve that standard.
Yep. And it really, really is like when we look at this performance edge, we've got the three main pillars. We've got the base, which is the health and the energy. We've got the fire, which is that purpose, that passion. And this final pillar, the structure of it all, the self-trust, the identity. If you don't believe or you don't embody that identity, the whole thing crumbles away. Okay? And so that's why out of it all, it's probably the most important part, because as soon as you say, this is who I am, you'll start to understand who you're not. And that will really build the structure of that entire pyramid.
100%. I think another practical thing there, and I mentioned it before, is writing stuff down each day. Like for me, I struggle to create daily systems for a really long time because everything was so up in the air. And just getting a journal, this 100-day journal here, I have to write in it every morning, and it is a reflection of the goals. And now I'm identifying as someone that consistently reviews her goals, that consistently plans her day, and I'm changing my identity by this daily non-negotiable, because I never used to do that. Journaling's annoying, like I don't need to do things in my calendar until I realised how much of a detriment not doing it was.
Yeah, definitely. And like if you're someone that's interested in this 100-day goal journal, like from the 1st of April, I'm starting another 100-day goal journal, because we've got some big goals, some big targets that we want to hit for our wedding, so we can have a cool wedding. And so if you're someone that wants to get on this and be part of an accountability group, just send me like a message, 100-day goals, and we'll even send you a book, or you can buy a book, and we'll create a group for this. The final piece to this, so first of all, very simple. Like, are you lacking energy? Your physical base, start there. If you don't have the energy, if you're not nourishing your body, you have to get that sorted, because you can have all the fire, all the drive. At some point, your body's going to say no more. You're going to get sick. You're not going to have the energy. You're going to decrease in cognitive performance, like we said, with the sleep and the hydration. And if you just don't have health, you don't really have anything. It's so underrated in high performance. The second part there is, are you disconnected from your mission? Have you lost connection to your purpose? Do you need to reconnect with your why? If you know your why, are you going to do something like Jess has been doing every single day? Sit down and sell yourself the dream by writing in your journal, seeing your goals, create a vision board, do what you have to do to consistently sell yourself that the dream is worth it, the hard work, the loss, whatever you got to do to create this dream,
And that
sell
it's
yourself
possible.
on it. 100%.
Like, I think a lot of people, they set a goal, they believe it's outlandish, but they also know it's achievable. But they say it's outlandish because they don't believe it's possible.
Yeah.
Because they haven't seen someone like themselves do it. So it is possible, as long as you continually do the reps on the board to make sure it happens.
Yeah, 100%. And then the final part with the identity piece is, like, are you breaking those small promises to yourself? You know, like your daily non-negotiables that you know that if you do, you will eventually achieve your goal. Have you actually been doing it? Because if you know that, hey, look, yesterday I skipped the gym, or yesterday I didn't quite do that learning, or, you know, I didn't make that business connection that I've been putting off for a couple of weeks. I knew I was going to do it. I said I was going to do it yesterday. I just didn't do. If you're breaking those small promises to yourself, like, set yourself some high level of accountability. Like, put out there, hey, look, this is what I'm doing for the next 100 days. I'm going to make sure I hit this. Those 3 pillars there. Are you lacking energy? Are you disconnected from your purpose? And are you breaking those promises to yourself? Find that, and you'll find where you need to put your attention to reclaim your edge.
And if this video has helped you understand a little bit more about, 1, your potential, 2, possibly where you're holding back, I'd love you to hit the subscribe button, because we'll be sharing similar tips, similar lessons to help you become a top performer.